If you're running a sales or a support or a CS team, you could have 100 people doing the same thing. In marketing, everyone's doing something slightly different. So it gets a little hard to lead a marketing team.
It's more important for me today to find the experts for each domain and for each area, and then combine that into a pretty lean and tight team.
Particularly on the AI, do we end up with less experts?
Growth at all costs doesn't exist anymore. You have to be more cautious. Is definitely AI on top of that.
Everybody, including C-level, deserves psychological safety. Now, it doesn't mean I can't push you really hard. If I give you that support, I can push you harder at the other times. Welcome to Whispered Hiring, the podcast where we talk with senior leaders about how they find, vet, attract, and grow go-to-market talent. I'm Andy Mullet, founder of Whispered. Today, I'm joined by Frida Ahrenby. Frida is the CMO at Rillion. She grew up on the sales side of the house and has been a 3-time CMO. I met Frida through the amazing women at Wednesday Women, which is Frida, you'll probably describe it better, but a powerful group of senior executive women that help each other out in their careers. And I'm so happy to have you here today, Frida.
Thank you. That's a good intro. I'm happy to be here. We've tried for a long time to get this together, and finally.
Yes, it's early morning my time, afternoon your time. As you are, I believe, our first guest in Europe, and we're excited for that. So welcome. But I've loved all of our conversations back and forth, and looking forward to this.
Thank you.
That's great. Well, maybe if we kick it off, you've grown up on the sales side of the house, but you've spent a lot of time on the marketing. How do you think about building out that executive team on the go-to-market side? What are some of the things that you need to have in place for a go-to-market executive team to really be successful?
That's a good question. So just as you say or said, I started my career within sales. So I done a couple of years running sales, which I love. I love sales and I loved being within sales and I learned a lot. So I think once I stepped into the marketing side of things, I've always looked at marketing as sales. Like, to me, it's almost the same thing. Sales and marketing are sales, and the purpose is to grow the company. So for me, whenever I build go-to-market teams and maybe marketing teams more specifically, it's very important for me to have people within the team that understand the business, understand growth, understand how marketing drives sales, and how you sort of connect the dots, and that are very, target driven, knows the sales language, knows the sales persona, understands how to collaborate and so forth across the teams. So I always build very growth oriented marketing and go-to-market teams, I would say.
That makes a lot of sense. It's hard. How do you evaluate that on the marketing side? I think on the sales side, they are, generally they meet at pipeline, is my view, right? Like if you're meeting at MQLs or brand impressions, you're probably not going to be a great marketer. But how do you really evaluate that in the interview process to understand? And obviously, like when a new marketer joins, if they can't bond with the sales team and win the hearts and the minds of the sales team quickly, they're going to struggle. So how do you evaluate marketers' ability to relate to sales?
I mean, the interesting part with marketing teams is that they is probably the most, or at least from my perspective, is probably one of the most dynamic teams. Like you have people that are demand gen marketeers, and they definitely understand the business side of things. And you have analytic people, but then you have the more creative people, and to have all of them bond, just as you say, around for example, revenue target, it's sometimes easier said than done.
Yes.
But I think in the interview process, what I try to always explain and talk a lot about is, the expectations or the journey that we're here to be on, and what we're trying to solve. And then obviously I connect that to the business growth and the business target, and try to understand whether they connect to that, understand that, ask a lot of questions around that, and and then it's quite easy to see what kind of questions they ask, how they grasp it, if they have more questions around that, and based on that, I can form a pretty good understanding whether they will later, if hired, also work towards these targets together with the rest of the team.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if a marketer is asking questions around what are the sales objections, things like that, that gets really interesting and helps you understand how they're thinking about it. If they're asking, I don't know how many marketers know, but like pipeline coverage or metrics like that, I think it really could show you, do they have that mindset, which makes a lot of sense. Your point was a really good one around all the different types of marketers, right? Like if you're running a sales or a support or a CS team, you could have 100 people doing the same thing. In marketing, everyone's doing something slightly different. So it gets a little hard to lead a marketing team sometimes.
Yeah, everybody's an expert, which I love because it gives me so much and I learn so much, but it's different and sometimes difficult in that way.
So how do you build your team? We were talking a little bit before we hit record, right, around the dynamics and how the team works together. I'd be curious how you design and build your team.
So I think what's different maybe today when I compare maybe 10 or 12 years ago is that many of the marketing teams, and maybe I'm generalizing now, but anyway, within B2B tech that I operate within, and usually within scale-ups, the teams are slightly, I would say, leaner today than they were a couple of years ago. So I think it's more important for me today to find the experts for each domain and for each area, and then combine that into a pretty lean and tight team. If I compare that with 10 years ago, I might have had 30 marketeers in a team, or 40 even. And then I had smaller teams within the marketing team. But now I have to be much more cautious to find, the exact fit for each domain or expertise area, which is different compared to a couple of years ago. So to me, it's very important to make sure that I find that expert and put a lot of effort into that.
Is that lean? I see that leanness too in the market. Is that leanness driven by AI, by the fact that growth is slower and there's just less budgets? Is it, what do you think that leanness is about? And then in particular on the AI, do we end up with less experts because now design can be democratized, right? Like campaign production can be more automated. And so how do you think about that?
I think it started out with, growth at all costs doesn't exist anymore. You have to be more cautious. You can't build those big teams anymore. But with that said, what we've seen the last year is definitely AI on top of that. So even if I started at Rillion 2 years ago, and I was very clear on that. Okay, I will come into this company. I will build a lean team, but that was driven by that. I want to make sure that we don't drive the cost base too high to start with. But today, even if I could, I wouldn't necessarily increase the team that much, because I think that there's a gain in being very tight and being very lean, because you can be faster, you can be more agile, decisions can be made together as one team. Everybody understands the strategy and the direction. There's no silos. And then putting AI on top of that, it doesn't make sense at all to increase humans before increasing agents in that sense.
I agree. It's funny. My sister, Melissa Moody, who we met through, coined the term two pizza marketers, which was like teams with the Amazon concept of they have to be able to fit around two pizza boxes and eat two. I think when you get bigger than about 10 people in marketing, it becomes more around the process between and the shipping. And so if you have those lean teams, I think if I had to run a team, you don't end up with politics, you don't end up with the silos, all as you said, if you're running a small. Yeah, or I can't ship this until design has been resourced. And so you're working on almost like a production line factory in these bigger teams, which I've been in 3 times.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
Me too.
Versus like, I think the lean, even in a large company, is the way to go for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love the fact that we can put everyone in one room and just make a quick decision and then go out and execute on it. So I definitely like the fact of running a smaller team today compared to other assignments that I've had.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's one of the benefits of AI, although it's a little challenging in some ways. When you start to go after that next maybe senior hire on your team, how do you go about it? Like, I think what we see is everyone pings their network first and says, "Hey, who do you know?" After that, where do you go?
I mean, I think to start with, I think it's hard to hire senior marketing leaders, because back again to the fact that now that the teams are leaner in a sense, I would say that the expectations on that person is almost higher. So they have to both be senior, they have to be strategic, but they also have to be okay with being hands-on, rolling up their sleeves and just go do and sort of operate like an individual contributor, although they are senior and they are supposed to be leaders at the same time. But back to how I find them, I definitely, I do have a large network of my own. So I, of course, look to that network, the first thing I do. I have I would say, group of trusted recruiters that I also bounce a lot with. Either not necessarily that they themselves get the assignment. I usually try to work internally with our HR to start with, but it's extremely valuable to be able to bounce and discuss with them in terms of candidates or tips on candidates or people that they might know of or heard of or so forth. So I would say those are the two. I mean, my own network is my first go-to source, and then obviously second degree connections, trusted recruiters. But then I would also look at companies that I admire, that I think are doing a good job or doing a similar or have a similar journey that we have. For example, Rillion is betting big on US. Okay, what other companies are doing the same, maybe within the same space or at the same growth pace or something like that. And then I would actually go source to see, okay, what kind of people do they have that I do not know about yet, but could be interesting for whatever role I'm hiring for.
I like that. Double click into the maybe 2 areas I love to double click. One is the second degree connections. Like, it's interesting. I think people go first degree of like, you'll go on LinkedIn, you'll look up like, I'm looking for demand gen, you'll ping everybody that's kind of like good, and you'll be like, hey, are you free? If not, who do you know? How do you leverage your second degree connections?
My second degree.
Yeah. Is that just looking on LinkedIn and seeing who do you know the second degree that you can get to, or sending them out, or how do you leverage the second? And by the way, the question behind the question here, I think, is we know it's like the first move for everybody on hiring is always go to your network. And then after that, they're kind of like, and so we're always, I think Whisper becomes one of those places, right? Can people come to us and do that? But I'd be fascinated to hear are there any tactics you have with the second degree connections? And then on that side.
Well, that's a super good question. I think I'd probably ask for intros directly from my first degree connections, and then reach out myself.
Makes sense. How about the recruiter? The recruiters is a really interesting one. Like, the fact that you have them, you've built that stable of them. You may not engage them, but you have these conversations with them. Like, that seems like an interesting tactic there as well too, right? Like, maybe sometimes you use them if the in-house people can't, but like, how do you use them without engaging them? I think is kind of an interesting one there.
I don't know if that is a common thing. I mean, obviously, these are people that I'm very close to. It's a mutual, I would say, collaboration. So they sort of use me too whenever they have assignments that they're working on. They might bring me in to give my feedback on a candidate, or if they know that I work with somebody or know of somebody, they ask for my input and so forth. So then it makes it easier for me to obviously do the same when I'm recruiting or hiring. But I also think that sooner or later, I mean, it's a mix. Sometimes I don't use them, sometimes I do use them, but we always collaborate in one way or another. Does that make sense?
It totally does. It's what we advise to people. I think some people view recruiters as transactional, right? Which is, if I'm looking for a job, I'll take the calls. If not, I don't do it. I think what you've done, which I advise a lot of people to do, is build relationships with those top 15 to 20 recruiters. You may, if you're popping your head up, you may need them. If bring them candidates, right? Like, hey, I got hit up by another amazing VP of demand gen. I don't know, but like, you should introduce. If you're starting to make those introductions back and forth, similarly, when you're looking for a role, when you're searching to hire a role, you can tell them. They may be like, oh, this person's in market. They may not try to take a fee on it, but they may just make a quick intro as to do a favor. And then you're probably also, if a friend's hiring for somebody, like, oh, talk to this recruiter, and so it becomes new relationships. I think that's the stock of their business. And so I think that tactic deeply resonates with me, and it's one that very few people do well. So it's fun to click into that one a little bit.
And I think what I'm always trying to do is, like, for example, if I'm being approached with, are you available for this CMO role or this CRO role? And I say, no, I'm not in the market, but give me the brief and I'll see if I have someone. And I always try to send over 1 or 2 or 3 names. And by doing that, I also think that there's an open door for me to not necessarily ask for, hey, do you have a candidate for me because I'm recruiting, but could you look at this CV? What do you think? Or could you help me with this? Or I mean, it's always a give and take, isn't it?
I couldn't agree more. This is the way I've run my career. A lot of senior execs have. It's like, so when they do pop their heads up, they're not afraid. I think this is also one of the key powers of Whispered, right? Which is executives get whispered these roles and they share them with us. And so we become a very trusted repository where they come in, but they don't go out and they don't spread and they don't become public, right? So a lot of people will just come to our website, even if they're not a member of Whispered, and say, hey, I heard of this role. And so that gives us we're kind of like a meta market intelligence across all of that. So yeah, I think it's a good one that we advise, and a lot of people don't realize it. They are like, well, how do I stay in touch with recruiters? I think the best way is send them good candidates, send them other companies hiring.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
That's neat. Well, how does somebody, say you're hiring for a role, how does somebody break through? How does somebody get through to Frida, right? Like, I was lucky enough to get an introduction from my sister, but how does somebody get to you, who is a very busy CMO with a very lean team, if they want to work for you?
I think I am a bit difficult in terms of that.
It only took us 3 months to find each other, so.
No, but I do value. I mean, I definitely trust my network, and I have an immense trust in the people that I keep close to me. To get to me, you definitely need to get to some of them. I need to be honest about that. With that said, when I have recruited senior roles, it's not like the door is closed for a normal application. Definitely not. But it would take time before that person get to me. Then it will always be somebody screening before me and screening again and screening again and screening again. And then at the end, when there's a very short list, and then I would obviously, already done a lot of work around that, researching that person to really see if it is worth meeting in that sense. But yeah, I honestly, it is hard. It must be hard for people. I'm sorry about that, but yes, it is.
No, it's okay. I mean, that's part of the art, right? Like if you're going to be good at marketing or sales, you need to be able to break into these things. And so if you're going to if you're going to sit back and click apply on every job, it's like there's this whispered job economy, right? Which is our tagline is your next role won't be whispered, won't be posted, it'll be whispered. And it truly is the case. Maybe there's one that we don't normally go into, but I'm really intrigued. Like you seem to be very thoughtful about your network. We talked already about how you build a network with recruiters. I'd be curious, I'm a big fan of building that network will help you hire, will help you in your career. What other ways do you invest in your network so it can help you?
I mean, I've built up a large follower base on LinkedIn to start with. I put a lot of time into that. The funny thing is, though, that I haven't done it necessarily for myself to begin with. It's always been part of the business strategy for the companies that I worked for, and
Yes.
I've sort of used myself and me as a channel and a distribution channel to build the company reach and brand and awareness and so forth. But obviously, as a side note, I've also built a network of my own and a personal brand of my own. And I realized by giving a lot to that network, sharing, my journey, my failures, my questions, my challenges, and just being very honest and transparent about the journeys that I've been on, both maybe more business journeys, since I've always been in startups and scale ups, but also personal stories. I've also gained a lot of contacts and maybe actually also close friends and close relationships, because I've been kind of honest with who I am and what I do, and put myself out there and always been, keep showing up in that sense. So back again to getting and giving, both in terms of giving my story and my journey, but then also seeing people that connect with me and they ask me questions and they want to be mentored or they want to be looking for an advisor. And I always try to be open to do that as much as possible, both for the sake of nurturing the network and the contacts, but also the fact that I learn from it, but also if people that are younger than me or women that are growing and developing can learn from me, I'm just so happy to be able to do that.
Wow, that is exactly the same way I live my side as well too, right? Like writing, giving. I've fallen in love with LinkedIn voice notes, right? Like I don't have time for a half-hour call, but I think maybe you and I have gone back on some of them too, which is the ability to just 10-second, 30-second thought conversation. How can I help you async in the right way? I think also the writing helps. Like you go to a conference and everyone recognizes you. The photo or like, wow, you're Andy, and I sit down next to somebody at dinner, and I think it helps with hiring, right? Like it's when you need to hire, you can go to your network a lot more effectively than other people can.
Yeah, and I think that's that's the answer to the question that you asked. Like, how do you find people? For me, I'm almost like, well, it's not difficult. I just ask around and I have them close to me. But then obviously I've done the work and I've nurtured the network and the contacts and the relationships. And that's why it's easy when I do look for someone. But
Yeah,
it hasn't come for free.
that is neat. And then, do you have any tradition? There's the loose network, right? The people that follow us on LinkedIn, the people that we trade one or two notes with. But then there's those close people that are like your speed dial and all of that. How any tactics for how you maintain and build that network?
I mean, I have a super. I think I would probably see my network as circles, and I have the very close circle of people that I stay very close with. For example, I have a CMO or CXO network that I actually formed during the pandemic when I was sitting at home feeling bored and uninspired, and I just needed a group of people to connect with and share ideas and bounce ideas with. So those people that are close like that, we are on speed dial. We have a WhatsApp group. We meet for lunches and dinner. We check in with each other constantly.
I love that.
I was invited, as an example, to one of them had their kickoff with their management team today, and I was invited to sit on a panel and answer questions, and she would do the same for me. That circle of contacts or friends or connections I keep very close. The other circle, I would say, maybe is more. I mean, it's hard to meet people in person in that sense, but I have other people that I might have online meetings or coffee chats with, like this, once every second month or once a quarter, and we check in with each other. We might talk about life, but we also talk about business, and we might have a question that we want to discuss a bit extra. Like I had a call like that yesterday. We talked about branding and a rebrand for her company. So it depends a little bit which group. But I either in-person meetings and then online meetings, and then it's just a back and forth chatting on LinkedIn, text messages, WhatsApp. I think there's a lot of channels where we connect in that sense.
I like that. You just touched on one that I've always used, which I think anybody can, which is I've actually built really deep friendships where I'll ask a friend to come on in to my offsite. Or my team. And I think that brings external perspectives to the team. There's a gentleman named Noah Marks that he and I did it for years, where he and I would bring our two teams together. He was at Okta, I was at Box, and we would just literally say, like, we're going to talk about how marketing operations works, right? We were non-competitive, and it builds relationships, it builds friendships. I think that's a fun one. There's those types of things that people don't realize. They can not only help you build a network and idea share, but also help your team see other ways of looking at the problem too. And it sounds like you use that one too.
I haven't done that at Rillion actually, but I did that at my former job, where we actually, one of my CMO friends, we would do bi-monthly team meetings, her team and my team, and we would decide, okay, this time we're going to discuss ABX, let's say, and we would say, okay, it's your team's. You're the one running the show this time. Okay. And then they would tell us, okay, this is what we've done around ABX. And then we would discuss and compare notes. And then the next time, maybe we would talk about rebranding. So, and then we would run that for a year, which obviously built our relationship even closer, but also, as you said, connections between our teams as well.
I agree. That is a good tactic. Let's shift over to how you evaluate talent, interview process. I think, once people get through to you, and you're interviewing them, either you as the hiring manager or as maybe the manager of the manager, I'd be curious, like, how do you go about evaluating talent? And I can give you more specifics, but I love to keep it vague sometimes because people have really interesting answers.
I think, obviously it's the more detailed role description, but that one is the easy part, I would say. Checking the boxes. I think what I try to look for, back again to maybe your initial question, what we talked about in the beginning, I look a lot to team dynamics, personality, energy, leadership style, self-awareness. Maybe the tactics that I use to evaluate more deeply are the soft ones, and not necessarily the competence or skill parts. That's the basic that needs to be there. But then I look for these softer criterias more thoroughly, I would say.
Do you have any favorite interview questions that get to the heart of those softer skills?
I have several. I would say one is, which usually catches them a bit off guard, is that I would ask, if what are you like when you're having a bad day? How would I notice that you're having a bad day? And then how would you like me to support you? through that day. And then people always, go a bit like this because they don't want to tell me that they might be super grudgy or they come in looking black in their eyes or something like that. But that's what I want them to tell me, because we all have bad days, and then we can more talk about, okay, well, that's fine, but how do you overcome that? Or what do you want me to do? Do you want me to tickle you? Do you want me to tell a bad joke? Do you want me to hold your hand? What do you want me to do when you feel like that? And how can we make that a productive day and nevertheless? So that is usually a good question, I think. And I like asking that question to more senior people because they definitely don't expect that question.
It's interesting. I love that. I literally am counseling a senior level person that their CEO could care less if they have, if they're having a bad day, their CEO is just like, buck it up and deal with it first. So I think it's like by asking that question, you also show that you're an empathetic leader, which I think is powerful. One question I've been debating a lot is at the C level, it feels like you shouldn't expect mentorship or guidance anymore. I still think you should expect someone to be there if you're having a bad day, right? Like I think that is a minimum expectation, but I'm curious, like as you get to a C level, do you find that, at the director level, you're going to have a VP that's going to kind of like guide and teach you a little bit? I think in my mind, there's this general market expectation at the C level. You no longer get that. What's your take on that?
I still think that you should get that because I mean, especially when you're in a scale up and you're building building a company is hard. It's tough. It's energy draining, and you have to constantly be there. And if you can't have bad days, and if you don't have peers or a manager that understands that and that are, that you can be open with in terms of that, it doesn't mean that you should that you can just skip delivering. I mean, we all need to deliver nevertheless. But the more honest you can be around the fact that, okay, this is me during the good days and this is me during the bad days, I think the better you can actually succeed and achieve things. We actually had this debate actually in a management group that I was part of, where one person said that I only expect 10s to work here, meaning that people can only be
A+ players.
According to his or her grading, a 10.
They have a high bar for talent. They believe in talent density. They love all those buzzwords.
Yes. And I was
exactly.
like, but how can you even say that? I'm not a 10. Sometimes I'm a 3 or a 2 even, but I still expect me to be okay. I still think that I have the right to be here because I know that I'm going to do a great job. So, and if we demand that from our peers and our people, what kind of culture does that create? So, no, I definitely ask this question to C-level as well. But just as you're onto, some of them do find the question weird and they don't know how to answer it, and then that tells me something too.
I would say I'm an 11 when I have psychological safety, and I'm a 2 when I don't, right? And I think
Absolutely.
and I think some people don't need it, but I think your question really gets to the heart of that. I know an executive that doesn't have psychological safety. I know a lot of people that don't have psychological safety in this market right now, and they call, even if they're not looking through Whispered, they drop a note, and I do a lot of talking them through, how do you handle this? Should you stay here? Those types of things. And I think everybody, including C-level, deserves psychological safety. Now, it doesn't mean I can't push you really hard. I think I subscribe to the theory you have, which is if I give you that support when you need it,
then
I can push you
very hard.
I can push you harder at the other times. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's that's probably what I'm looking for as well when I hire senior people. Like because I need to know also how they lead and what expectations and demands they are going to have on their people. And I want to make sure that we create an environment that is safe for everybody to perform, but also just be in.
I couldn't agree more. I'm so glad we took this kind of tangent for sure. Let's see. I got a couple more questions, but anything before I kind of dive deep on a couple more, like anything else in the interview process you feel passionate around, whether it's AI fluency or background references or anything like that?
I think I also look for maybe that's especially true, or I don't know, but for DTM teams, back again to the part of building dynamic or diversified teams. So what I'm also trying to look for is how they go about doing that, making sure that they have a strategy for not building teams where everybody looks and talks and acts the same, but actually, make the effort to find different kinds of people, because at the end of the day, I definitely think that's how we succeed and succeed better. And then I obviously need people around me that see that the same way and make sure that they put the effort into finding or building the dynamic teams in that sense.
I like that. So if you get a good candidate, or you get a candidate and you've hired and you've closed, how do you make them successful in that first 30, 60, 90? And what are you looking for to know if it was a good hire?
I am a person that I set high expectations, definitely. I'm very clear on what I expect, but also the targets and deliverables. But I would say I hope, no, but I do think that I'm very, I'm coaching, I'm supportive, I make sure that I have people's backs, but I definitely expect them to get in, obviously have a good onboarding, but then it's time to hit the ground and start running and deliver. But then I think it's the expectations, it's the clear targets, it's the clear direction that I make sure they understand. So it's sort of that's the framework. But then my expectations is that they start running and delivering on whatever assignment or project or responsibility they might have. I think the success comes from me or them feeling that I have their backs and they can ask for help whenever they need to. I will always support, but you have to sort of raise your voice and ask for the help. I'm not going to be there lurking around. And if you don't ask for help, I expect you to deliver accordingly.
I love that. The concept of managing up is a powerful one for me, right? Like I am here for you. If you need me, I'm there. I expect you to tell me when you need me, to be bringing me ideas, telling me what to do versus the other way. And I try to coach on that really early, and set the right expectation there. Maybe as we wrap up, you're deeply thoughtful about hiring, right? Like how to leverage recruiters in ways that everyone should do but doesn't, how to build your network in ways that people should do but probably aren't as thoughtful about. Like, who have you learned the most from about hiring in your career? Is there somebody that stands out that you watched, learned, got mentored from, or has it just been through trial and error?
Oh, that's a great question.
I used it yesterday on somebody, and it yielded a fascinating response. So it's a fun one.
I think it's a combination, both in terms of, I think early in my career, early in my career when I applied myself for different kinds of jobs. I mean, this was really, really early. I was applying for a lot of big corporation jobs, consultancy, strategic consultancy firms. I went through a lot of different difficult interview processes and, case interviews and yeah, a lot of different and difficult processes. And I think I learned quite a lot from that early on, what I did like about some of the processes and what I definitely didn't like about some of the processes. And then as I moved on, I think I've applied a lot of those learnings into my own recruitment style. But then I've also had, I especially had a fantastic HR business partner 10 years ago when I hired a lot, who stood by me in all of those recruitments and was part of the recruitment process that I learned a lot from, both in terms of sourcing, in terms of asking the difficult questions, in terms of maybe scrutinizing to some sense, really looking through CVs for gaps or things that were off or didn't make sense, learning how to ask difficult questions, follow up on some questions, and so forth. Yes, it's a combination of my own experience back in the days and early on, and then working with some really great business partners.
I love it. I think a lot of people, if they've just been in startups, haven't experienced this HR business partner role. I feel like it starts to emerge at like C or D stage companies. I'd be curious what stage you were at, but the great ones are great. The bad ones, you kind of just figure it out yourself. So it's powerful.
Yeah, and I think also now I'm just going to say that I agree with you that usually the company has to be slightly bigger for you to have a partner like that. And I've also brought that with me when I've been at smaller companies. I've noticed that not my peers haven't been at all aware of the same things that I've been aware of in terms of recruitment. So I probably taught other people a bit about that as well.
Especially as a senior executive, larger company, they can be like an extra set of eyes and counsel and sounding board. And so it's a fun role that got created. I think we learned a lot about it when I was building at Culture for 4 years, because we worked with all these HR VPs and we got to really understand how they ticked. Well, this was an amazing discussion. Thank you for taking the time. I'm so glad we got to do this. I'm excited one day to meet in person, either in Sweden or in the US or somewhere else. And so thank you so much, Frida, for the time.
Thank you, Andy, and have a good day.
You too. Thank you.